you need to have trust to allow the agency to be creative and work in autonomy. And to do that, the brand needs to trust you, the client needs to trust you. But trust isn't something you can sell and isn't something you can buy. So trust is built, and you built it by being very transparent and leading meetings with the stuff that didn't work out without being afraid, and being transparent as to when you do make a mistake, being transparent as to when the objectives and the ambitions are perhaps too ambitious. There are an incredible amount of agencies who, to win the client or to keep the client, will say yes to anything, right? And then these types of deals never really work out for anybody. People get beaten and burned. And the trust gets dented, not only for that particular agency, but for the industry. That's why we had the pleasure to be speaking on behalf of Google to many agencies. And there are so many potential brands and advertisers who, when you tell them you're an agency, you're telling them that you're the Antichrist, right? Because they are so burned and so afraid to be burned again. And we fix that together. There isn't just one agency that can fix that. One agency can fix or build good trust with one particular client, but we all need to build trust by doing that. You don't build trust. People think that building trust means proving the agencies are good and it's worth having an agency. That's nonsense, because you can't really guarantee that. You may be able to do an incredible amount of good work for clients, or you may put in a lot of time and efforts and then the results are not quite the same. It is the input that is important. It's the good intentions, the good resources, not over-promising and under-delivering. It's that kind of stuff. So I think trust is the final, if you will, objective, is the final characteristic that you're trying to have, but it's built through being transparent, being upfront, being a true extension of the customer's team. Things like ownership and accountability. There are many agencies that will tell you, oh, but that's not our job. Site is not converting. We are a marketing agency. That isn't our job. That is the conversion rate optimization agency job. That isn't their attitude that builds trust. The attitude that builds trust is when the agency says, well, the conversion rate is not what it should be. We don't do that internally, but let me see if I can reach out to an agency that we work with and we can get to fix that, right? So you build trust by being collaborative and by making the problem of the customer your problem. And eventually you build trust that way. You build trust when something hasn't gone right and you don't say that wasn't our fault. You take ownership for your own mistake and you try to make it up. Listen, we fucked up badly there and that was negligence. We're going to make it up to you by doing A, B, and C. Or we made a mistake then. That was a very easy mistake to make for anybody. So these things happen, unfortunately. When you work with us, you know that sometimes we make mistakes. So you need to take ownership and be so confident in who you are that you have no problems talking to customers the way you would talk to your brother about it. In total transparency. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to work together to create something cool. We're not going to do this with tactics on how to talk to customers. When you go to a meeting, and I'm overstaying my welcome here, I understand, but when you go to a meeting and the agency keeps showing the flashy slides over the petty little metrics and KPIs they were able to achieve, then that's a red flag for me. It's important to discuss what's gone right and celebrate, but it really isn't about the flashy slide. It's about cooperation and true understanding of the problem and commitment to solving it. Transparency is important only as much as the information that you're being transparent about is relevant to the customer. I don't really subscribe to publishing the wages. What is the purpose of it? But if there is a good purpose, it's good. If there isn't, then it becomes a gimmick. It becomes something that you do, a stunt that you do to attract PR. It's actually where transparency becomes the opposite of transparency. Because why are you doing it? Do you see what I'm saying? So now I think transparency is one of the things. When I wrote this article, the 10 things that brands hate about agencies, one of the things to do with transparency is a problem that happens all the time where the agency comes in and sells you the contract with the Imogen's type. Imogen is one of our most senior people here at Genie. That's the person that sells you the contract. That's the person that is going to work on the contract. And then after 3 months, they put a junior on the account, but they don't tell the client, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's something that you should absolutely tell the client. Listen, the account has now achieved the maturity whereby Imogen can supervise and John can take over, right? John, whoever John is. And that's the type of transparency that is relevant, right? Or we made a mistake and we did this to rectify, so you actually would never see the mistake, but it was that. That's good transparency because you could have learnings. We had, in this very room, it was the launch meeting with one of the largest, if not the largest client that we have today, one of the largest. And we were having this launch meeting, and one of the persons at the table was being a bit resistant of our approach, which is to test and to do new stuff and to do to do the stuff that nobody else is doing. And at one point, I remember saying to this person that if this was the type of approach and the type of relationship they wanted, we wouldn't be the right agency. And they were going to give us a lot of money. And there was transparency, there was transparency from the start, because if I didn't make that clear and they came on board expecting an agency that does what they say, then that's not us. We don't work that way, right? And it would have been a horrible relationship for them, for our staff, for us. It wouldn't have lasted. But that way, in this case, they stayed with us. In our case, where the client decides not to work with us for this stuff, in that case, we set the bar. And they trusted from the beginning. Maybe not so comfortably, you could say, because I forced that. I talked about building the trust. That was kind of almost forced in their face. But it was the only way it was going to work. So, and what happened then is that they allow us to run tests. When we say, oh, that piece of creative isn't great, we should use this, they trust us. And they understand the authority in that. We are the agency. Because we are going to take the blame where the campaigns don't work. Then you're going to have to allow us to do it our way, right? Because if you tell me what to do and then it doesn't work, So that's one way. A more organic and natural way, if you will, is when we start working with a brand and then we show transparency and then we show ownership and leadership when we make a mistake. We show proactive communication when we change people over and so on. And then they just naturally, very, very kind of organically start to trust us more, and they ask for our opinion. They want us to be involved in other meetings that perhaps are relevant but not necessarily directly connected to what we're doing. And you kind of perceive it, you feel it, right? It's a great question. There isn't like a table that you could use. If you tick those boxes, you should, and if you don't, you don't. You shouldn't. It's a lot to do with the maturity of the brand. Typically, the more mature the brand is, bigger, not necessarily just bigger in size, but certainly bigger in experience and so on. And the more you should be thinking about perhaps insourcing some of the stuff. I think what changes is not so much whether you should use an agency or not, it's how you use agencies. So for example, if I had a brand that is medium to small, I would probably use an agency for most things. If the brand is very complex and the business is very atypical, so there aren't many like you, there are maybe 2 or 3 in the world like you, that's something that maybe you want to insource, because one of the advantages of using agencies is that they will be able to look across the spectrum of 50, 20, 100 clients and kind of draw patterns and understand other things and kind of share with you the knowledge gathered on working on many accounts. If you're 1 or 2 or 3 in the world, that would be a benefit that you don't get. And also, it will be very hard for the agency to truly understand your business. One of the things that we try to do here at Genie Goals, is really to try and understand the business, the nature, the margins, the intricacies, and that way we can serve the client more. If the business is one of a kind, it's very hard to do that. But I think you use agencies less for execution stuff, the more you grow. So you would have people in-house that run the campaigns, and I would use an agency to do consultancy, to do training to my staff. We have access to Google betas and Google News, which is a lot more thorough and deeper than what a brand could have by themselves because their budget is smaller, and so kind of Google gives you more the more you spend. So I would use an agency to try and understand the new products. I would use an agency to try and understand the benchmark. I would use an agency to see what the best technology is. And then, like I said, training the staff, keeping the staff up to date, auditing. You can be the best marketer, the best professional in the world in whatever you do, but after a while that you work on the same product, you build some blindness to certain aspects of it. Bringing in a fresh pair of eyes will give you a different perspective. So editing, training, consultancy, strategy, technology, all that kind of stuff. There's an article published on our blog about it, and I think in that article I illustrate the different scenarios that you have. I think that article will probably guide some brands to making a decision, but I think it's really something that every brand needs to figure out for themselves. And it's not really whether you do it or you don't, it's how much do you give to agencies and how much do you keep in-house. How do you best achieve your goal by using the combination of in-house teams and agencies. You had a dream, right, in your life that you can remember? Yeah, and maybe some of the dreams that you had, you actually then experienced in real life, right? We all had it, whether it's falling or whatever, or kissing a girl you like, whatever. And then you experience something very similar in real life, and that's the difference. So we knew what it would look like in our mind, but now we know what it looks like in real terms. And it is a phrase that I truly believe we started. I never heard it before. We started saying it everywhere. Now people say it, so we started it. It's our phrase. And what I think it means, what it should mean to everybody, is to sit in the room and really truly be goal-oriented and look at the problem. As an agency, I don't care the way I come across. I don't care if you, after the meeting, want to leave the agency. I don't give a shit what you think of me in that moment. I'm looking at the problem. And if I feel that I need to say that you're wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong like you're my brother. The moment I need to do anything differently just to prove to you that it's okay for you to keep paying me, then I'm not working like an extension of your team. It's when you forget that you need to get paid. And I think we're pretty good at doing that. I think as a whole, we always do the right thing, even when the right thing won't mean losing the contract. So this book has been in beta reading, which for those not familiar with the term, it's just when the book is finished, it's not edited yet, and you give it to 5-10 people, selected with a specific set of criteria. So some that know you, some that don't, some that like you, some that don't, some agencies. And in my group, there was 2 Googlers, there was 2 agencies, there was a brand that I never met in person and so on. And they gave me feedback. And 2 of the Googlers actually said to me, are you sure you want to share all that stuff? You're talking about everything that you did at the agency, to go from 0 to 40 plus people and 4 million in revenue. And absolutely, I want to share everything, because if we all get better as an industry, we elevate the industry, there'll be many brands who are not advertising with agencies, who are not using agencies, who begin to use agencies because the reputation of the industry will be better, and we'll all win, right? So that's the reason which fuels this passion for sharing everything that we do. I started a group on Facebook and on LinkedIn for agencies. We've got 140 members now, 140 agencies. We share everything, right? And some of them you can tell they are so still alien to this idea and they're not sharing, and you can see that they're surprised when we do share. But that's the only way forward, because we will grow together. Practically, it's not really about knowing what to do, it's about doing it, right? So it's not that you share stuff and people go out and do it. If that was the case, there'll be many successful companies out there. There aren't. So when you share stuff, it's still down to them to go and do it. And if they do it, then they deserve to win. There's business for everybody. And essentially, we don't come from a place of scarcity when we look at these things. We come from a place of abundance. There is business for everybody, and there could be even more business if we all share and become better as a group. So that's what I think very, very, very few agencies do, but it's the one secret to success of every agency. 100%. The why is the reason why we do what we do. If you open a business because you want to make money, you'll struggle. You might do it, but you struggle because when adversity presents itself, you'll quit because money doesn't mean anything, right? Or you compromise and adjust your goal, and that's problem number one. Problem number two is that even if you really have this strong money-oriented why, your staff will. And if your staff won't, they won't follow you as much. They don't give a shit about the money that you make. Not everybody is really focused on money, and therefore it's hard to get the buy-in. And also it's just really boring and sad. When you have a very good, important why, then you don't quit at adversity because you've got a stronger reason. You don't feel like you have a job. It kills me, honestly, if you are in my network, wherever this goes, don't ever send me the Happy Friday stuff. I hate Happy Friday message. I hate it. I love Friday just because I love spending time with my family, right? My family aside, I freaking hate Friday. I want Monday. I want to work because I'm not working. I do what I love. And who loves doing digital marketing really? It's a cool industry, but who loves it? Just a psycho guy loves it. I love how I do it and why we do it, to revolutionize the industry. We do to touch millions of people with a positive message. And when you have a strong why, then you do Happy Monday stuff, instead of Happy Friday. That's much better. So my goal in life is to touch as many people, millions of people if I can, with a positive message and help everybody become a bit better, right? Me included. Statistically, I won't achieve that, right? Because 95% or more of people won't achieve their big goals. And I'm not being pessimistic about this, it's just stats, right? I might do it, but statistically I will not. Now, if I just do that, I'll probably hate the whole process because if you look at the stats, you're probably not going to do it. And if you don't look at the stats, deep inside you're delusional, right? But instead, I can focus on touching one person every day, right? And that I can do because it's in my powers, right, today in different ways. And therefore, I love what I'm doing because I'm progressing. I may not be even close to my final goal, but I'm progressing. And if you look at the studies that have been done on happiness, they will show you that happiness isn't given by status. For example, if you have 3 right now and you have 1 right now, right? I'll take 1 away from you, now you have 2. I'll give you 1, you'll have 2. You both have 2, but who's the happier? Yeah, you're much happier because you gain. You're much, sadder because you lost, but you still have 2. So it's progression. If we can give to ourselves small goals every day, we become happier. And then the other part of the study suggests that people that are happier achieve more, right? So it's a vicious cycle. And therefore, having a big why allows you to do these things, allows you to keep going even when the progression is small. My big why in life is to affect many people positively and to change the industry of marketing so that the reputation is better. At Genie, we have the why to also create the best possible place for people to work at. And when you have that, then people will buy into it. If you look at one of the talks done by Daniel Pink on TED, he talks about motivation and what motivates staff. And he talks about 3 main elements. One being mastery, so the ability to do stuff, and you do that by providing people with training. The second is autonomy, allowing people to make mistakes and to go and make decisions. And the third one is a sense of purpose. They need to have a sense of purpose that everybody buys in, so the big why, right? Because they don't care about your money or your why, but if you have a why that is revolutionizing the industry or creating a place of work that is the best, they can buy into that. And that's when you create motivation. And motivated teams achieve an incredible amount of stuff that non-motivated teams don't. So I think to answer your question, the why is super important because it fuels the energy that you need to create something remarkable. It will be very hard. There will be times where you wonder why you started. There will be times where you can't sleep. There will be times when you might go into debt or growing something special. There will be times where a client leaves you and you don't know whether you'll be able to pay the stuff. If you don't have a strong why in those moments, you are absolutely fucked.